Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another episode of the DCS series, and today we are bringing the P-47D Thunderbolt to the channel. Eagle Dynamics put out a video yesterday about being a Maverick, and it got me into a super DCS mood. I've been bouncing around all over the place, and I got to thinking that I hadn't done any warbird content on this channel and decided that that'd be kind of fun today. Now, just to give you guys a heads up, this isn't necessarily a tutorial, although you probably will learn quite a bit, but you'll definitely learn the way that I have been doing things, and hopefully everything goes well. So stick around, because at the very least, you'll watch me put a P-47 into the dirt. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future updates and future guides that will be coming down the road. Link to Patreon can be found in the description below. Alright guys, so as I said, the latest video put out by Eagle Dynamics really put me into a DCS mode. I'm ready to fly some aircraft again, do some combat. And I decided, you know what, we hadn't had any warbirds on the channel and it was time to bring them in. Actually, that's not true. I think I have the Mosquito, but I don't know if it really counts as a warbird. But anyway. So I decided to bring the P-47 Thunderbolt in. Now this is going to be a tutorial, but from Overkill's standpoint, if that makes sense. Not everything is going to be by the book. There's still plenty of steps that I'm sure I'm going to miss. But if you follow these steps, you should be able to get up and flying and still have a good time with the aircraft. We're going to go up. We're going to do a full start. We're going to do takeoff. We're going to go do some target practice, just some ground strafing, drop a couple bombs, shoot some machine guns, and then bring it back in for landing and hopefully have a good time with it. Obviously, tons of flyby views and cool camera shots should be included. That is the one great thing, or one of the many great things I should say about DCS. The camera views are always awesome in it. So let's go ahead and first talk about some controls you're going to want to map right out of the gate that I do recommend. Now, first let's start with some recommending. Okay, and what I mean by that is that not all of these are necessarily required, but you're definitely, they do help. First one is the starter engage. And we'll be talking about when to use all of these later on, but this is part of the engine start process. The starter energize, it's actually going to be energize first, then engage is how we're going to be using these. The throttle mixture auto rich, and the reason why is because you have to hold the starter engage button up, wait for the engine to do its chug chug chug, then immediately move the mixture handle over to auto rich. Now you could bind this to an axis if you have plenty of them, like the Bravo throttle quadrant, which is actually great for the warbirds because there are 4 or 5, maybe 6 axes that actually come in pretty handy on that. So it's really up to you guys how you want to do that. The other one that I recommend here is the gun safety switch. Just think of this as sort of the master arm switch, if you will, for the guns. You have off, and then you have the toggle for the cover, and then the actual guns and camera. Guns and camera position will actually enable you to fire the machine guns. The requirements here are going to be the cover and the guns and camera. Even if you map just the guns and camera and you try to use it but the cover is down, it won't let you. So you have to make sure you get that cover out of your way first, however we do that. And again, you guys will see evidence of that here when we get airborne. Some of the other things, let me think here for a second, that catch me right off the bat here. These here, your left wing toggle, this is the wing bomb arming, so if you want to drop a bomb or even rockets. Your right wing, and your belly bomb if you want to drop, and this is going to be both for tanks and as far as fuel tanks and the bomb, so it really depends on what you're doing. And then obviously you're going to want your weapon release and your trigger mapped for the machine guns. Those are probably the more critical things. Getting into the axis assignments for just a minute here, you're going to want your rudder pedal mapped, your left and right toe brakes, that's how we're going to steer it on the ground. It steers through differential braking. Throttle, Zoom if you can. It does help in the 2D view, being able to see your ground targets. K14 brightness. Again, this is the gun sight itself. So the first switch that we talked about where it said guns and camera arms the system, but then you actually have to use a brightness knob that's located on your left knee in order to actually bring the brightness of the sight up. So it really does help if you have a spare axis, you can put that on. Although if it came between the gun brightness and the landing flaps, I would recommend the landing flaps on an axis. And I'll show you guys why to that in just a second here. Your engine RPM, that's going to be critical. And then the boost, if at all possible. This is for the supercharger. We're probably not going to be using much of the supercharger today, but it is handy to have it up and available. And anything else I'll be walking you guys through. I'll tell you guys what I have mapped, what I don't. I fly often in VR when it's just me, and anytime that I have to reach for the mouse is quite the immersion breaker, and I hate that. So now let's go ahead and get into the cockpit and get her started up. The first thing I'm going to do is get us a rearm here. Go to rearm, refuel. We're going to go to rockets. I'm going to put the HVARs on it. Bombs, we're going to throw 250-pound bombs on it. Now, the one thing that I will tell you guys right away is the reason why we are out here and not, for example, in the channel map is the P-47 takes a ton of runway to get off the ground. It really does. It's a heavy, heavy aircraft. So when you're learning it and you're getting used to it, give yourself plenty of runway. You know, come out to the Caucasus map or even the Nevada test range would be awesome. All right, and now let's go ahead and get started with our engine start process. So I'm just going to say mapped before anything that I use that I already have key bound. So for example, my battery is mapped. Magnetos, we're going to want those to both. Those are mapped. My fuel tank selection is mapped, and we're going to set that over to the main, which is the top one here. There we go. And I also have left and right external tanks, but we don't need those for today. Okay, and let's see where we're at here now. Your cowl flaps, you want to make sure those are open. Now we do need to actually get some hydraulic pressure. Now I think the P-47 needs a little bit more work. Here's our hydraulic pressure gauge. Here's your manual pump handle. You pump that up.
Rearming complete.
Okay, and the reason why it keeps sinking like this is because our flaps handle is in an actuated position. So it's bleeding that pressure on right as we add it. So now if we center that, you can see now we have hydraulic pressure that's maintaining. And then what we're going to do is make sure the cowl flaps up there just behind the propeller are open. Give that a pull. Looks like they're already full open. Now at this point, we're going to right click the engine primer to unlock it. Pump it about 5 or 6 times. Lock it again. Make sure RPMs are at max. The engine throttle is cracked. We also want to set the parking brake. And how we're going to do that is we're going to pull this lever out, tap your brakes, let go of them, and then release the lever. And I also have that mapped as well, but you don't have to. You only use those at takeoff and landing, obviously. All right, and the other thing that I recommend you have mapped, I think we talked about, is the auto-rich function for the mixture. That's what we're talking about here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our starter switch and we're going to bring it down to the energized position for about 5 seconds, and that is mapped on my controls. Then we're going to center it and then go into the engage. There's the chug of the engine. Go to auto rich. And she's alive. Make sure your engage switch goes back to center. All right, and now I'll show you guys how the flap handle works. So you can see it's fully extended right now. If we pull the flap switch forward, to stop it, I have to go back to the center position. So if we want to go down, center, up, center, you guys got the gist there. Now, your only flap indication is down here on the wings. So you need to make sure that if you want 20 degrees of flaps, you are monitoring the wing position or the gauge on the wing, and that's why it's really helpful to have this either bound to a 3-way switch or to an axis like I have it. But other than that, that is about all the requirements. You can turn the radio on if you want. Left click the attitude indicator, although I don't rely on it at all. It falls out of sync pretty quick, which to my understanding was actually very common. And other than that, I have all 3 of these switches bound to keyboard commands or bound to switches. These are our arming switches for the left and right wing and the belly. I have our toggle between rockets and bombs and fuel tanks mapped as well. And the releases, at the moment, I'm just using the weapons release. I believe these are more jettison handles. And let's see here. I think... Oh, and the other one here is going to be your weapons arming switch, which is down here. Just the cover, and there's the safety switch. Now, I use RS Mapper, which allows me to put in a sequence. So, for example, if I'm arming my gun sight here, the first action it's going to do is lift the cover. The second one is going to be setting the switch down to guns and cameras. So, you can see there it goes there. And then when I release it, it just closes the cover. There it goes. And same thing that I have over here on the arming switch. Although that one, there it goes. Now it worked. Yep, there we go. Now it's in sync. All right. Anytime that you have to deal with these red covers, you have to make sure that the covers are lifted before the switch will be functional. So even if you just didn't want to bind to the cover, but then my recommendation would be to make sure that you open them before engine start or before you leave the ground. That way you don't have to fight with them later on. But we have them bound, so we're good there. All right. So now let's get the aircraft rolling. I'm going to push those toe brakes in. That's going to release the parking brake. We are a little heavy. We do want 10 degrees of flaps. There we go. And we're going to be using differential braking today. So left brake will get the aircraft turning to the left. Right brake to correct it. Once you get going where you want to be, you need to stop that left turn action with the opposite toe brake. So left brake, left brake, left brake, left brake, left brake, and now using right brake to start straightening it out. And this will be our first time dropping any bombs today, so you guys get to experience that for the first time with me. Oop. Be real careful. If you push too hard on the brake like I just did, it'll get turning very quickly. I'm still tapping that right brake to control that left turn that we just put in there. So one thing I hate in track IR is that you can't stick your head out the window like you can in VR to just peek around the propeller. So you got to do those S turns. We're going to go all the way down to the end of the runway here. Also make sure you have your trim mapped. Whoa, there's the donut. Almost spun it out. Get that caster kicked all the way over, man, and it will get all over the place. Want to make sure we roll a little forward to get that tail wheel as straight as possible. Now, something you can do that is recommended to do by the documentation is to lock the tail wheel. I actually don't do that. I prefer to just maintain control with the rudder pedals and the toe brakes if I need them. You really want to try to avoid using the toe brakes on takeoff, obviously, as you're going to be slowing the aircraft down and then obviously generating a lot of heat on the toe brake. Let's go ahead and close the canopy. You have electronic canopy switch right here, or you can just right click here. It's up to you. Or left click, excuse me. All right, and so now we're going to run her up to, we want to stay away from 52 inches of manifold pressure. We're going to go all the way up to about 2,900 RPMs is where she maxes out. At 100 miles an hour, we're going to pitch the nose slightly forward, bring that tail wheel up about 6 inches. 110 miles an hour, start pulling back and hopefully fly a P-47. So, you do want to make sure your trims are in the takeoff position. So we have rudder trim and the aileron trim, and by default those are normally already set. I actually do recommend, see there she goes, you can tell we still have a little bit of right kick in that nose wheel. This is where it can get kind of annoying trying to get it straight, and this is where the tail wheel does help. Okay, so there we go. Smooth acceleration of the engine. There's 45 inches of manifold pressure. We're just going to hold it right there. It's plenty of power. Coming up on 100 miles an hour. Pitching forward a little bit, getting that nose up, or nose down I should say. Using the rudders to control us. There's 110. Pulling back, right rudder to compensate. A little bit of right rudder, a little bit of right aileron. Got a big prop in this thing. Positive rate. Gears coming up. Whoop. Flaps coming up. She's a little crazy shortly after takeoff when you're getting used to it. Like I said, I'm still definitely learning. Start trimming out. Start trimming tail high. Or tail low, I should say. Nose high. And there we go. Start stabilizing. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to push left click to close the cowl flaps. Just push it and hold it. There they are. And a couple steps that I actually forgot, so shame on me. Right after engine start, we want to flip this switch way down here in the bottom up. That's our generator and the pitot heat. Alright, now we're ready to have some fun. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to arm our gun sight. Then I'm going to turn the gun sight on. That's with this little rotary right here. And that brings our gun sight up. And you can see it's on a gyro, which is really awesome. Gives you a little bit of stabilization. An idea of where the bullets are going to land up. And we'll just start out with some gun strafes, and then we'll see if we can drop some bombs. So let's head on out to our target area. Alright. Now that we're up and we're stable, let's go ahead and pull the manifold pressure back into the green. And same thing with the RPMs, right about 2,500, give or take. There she goes, settling in. It's very difficult to get it trimmed to where your hand's off, so I wouldn't expect that, especially, again, while you're learning. But you can get it trimmed to where it doesn't require as much input from you. Alright, we've got some neutral targets out there. Old World War II German supply trucks, a few armored vehicles. Now you do have a range calculator here, which will expand and reduce it based on the range that you're anticipating to fire. And then the wingspan indicator, which will shrink it down. The idea is to, like if you're doing an air-to-air attack, is you want your enemy's wingtips inside of these two lines here on either side. Since we're doing a ground attack, more or less that I've found, it's more just point and shoot. The steeper the attack, obviously the more accurate. The closer in you get, the better you can strafe. So it really depends on the kind of attack you're coming in on. Those white dots out there, there's our targets. Just before the cross on the runway there. And we're going to try to start with that right flank there. Try to do a more shallow approach for this one. Just having a little bit of fun. And for this one, I don't typically wait for the gyro. I typically only use that for air-to-air. We're just going to try to put our targets right on the center line of our crosshair here. Looks like we got a couple there. Oh! I didn't realize they were set to maneuver. I thought I disabled that. That'll make things interesting, won't it? Climb out a little bit. And we'll run back in. Now they're not going to attack us because they're technically neutral. Which means, honestly, I'm probably going to lose some medals for this. Because it's very similar to friendly fire. I've just become a hostile is what happened here. That's alright. Let's grab these two right here. Yeah, I got both of them. Alright, let's see if we can do some rocket damage. So for rockets, we need to make sure we set the armament switch. We're going to set that to single. And make sure that the fusing is set to instant. Oh, we need to arm the weapons arming panel. There we go. And we need to arm the left and right wings. So there's one, there's two. And that one on the far right is for the belly. I'm going to try a more steep approach with these guys. If anything, they kind of made my targeting easier by grouping up like that. Reduce that rate of climb. Making sure all of our temps are good down there. And for this, I'm going to use that bottom horizontal line underneath the gun sight there, the last yellow line. Try to line up, get stable. I think I actually just dropped a bomb. Ah, I just wasted our bombs. Did I not switch it? Oh, I switched it to the bombs. That sucks. Well, those missed. And I don't think I armed them because I wasn't expecting to use them. That sucks. Alright, well, now we'll try the rockets. Oops. That's what I said. Today we're just going to use rockets and guns. So now we are selected on rockets this time. And let's start popping some. There we go. Looks like we got one more pass of rockets left. Still want to get those two that are right there. But some of those are heavy armor. We got some Panthers out there, so I'm not sure the rockets are strong enough to take out a Panther. Now we could also be using a little bit of dive flaps if we wanted to, but I haven't found a reason to yet. I don't think our dives are necessarily steep enough for that. Those are too low. Yeah. Alright, let's bleed off some more machine guns and then we'll call it a day here. We can safety the armament panel. Not sure we really did anything with those, but it was fun. Plus, I think the best thing ever is the machine gun still. Nothing beats a good machine gun strafe. Alright, let's try it one more time. I think we got enough rounds for one more pass. Oh, something just blew up there. Come on. I think we strafed heavy armor. Let's see if we got any more. I don't think we do. I think that last round pegged it. Alright, let's take it home. Secure the gun sight. And let's go see how terrible I am at landing a P-47. Alright, so the first thing that I want to do is make sure that we are below 250 knots, which conveniently enough we are. I'm going to pull the RPMs back just a bit, help slow us down a little bit more. I'm going to give us about 10 degrees of flaps. Sort of help with that slowing down process. .200 knots. Going to go ahead and drop the landing gear. Going to bring in flaps 20. Way too high at the moment. And we're approaching 150 knots now, or 150 miles an hour I should say. I'm going to go full flaps. Whoa. Watch that transition. Stay sharp on your rudders. We can still get lined up here. It was a bad turn, but we got plenty of time to line up. Now with the P-47, everything that I have found says it does land using the 3-point landing. Let that nose pitch down. I'm pulling some power off. Alright, RPM is back to max. Trying to get stable on about 120 miles an hour. There she goes. Nice. Last minute. Alright, holding that nose up, pulling the power off. Hold it. Oof. Lot of bounce. Lot of bounce. That was bad. Oh! I think we destroyed the landing gear on that one. Oh no! Too much brake. We're down in the dirt. Well, like I said, this was not a tutorial. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this series. We're definitely going to be doing a lot more of this. These will get better, and we will get into official tutorials once I get more comfortable. But I figured, you know what? I'm learning the aircraft, probably making the same mistakes you guys are. You can help me. I can help you. We're just like a big old freaking, simulator family here. So anyways, I hope you're all having a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.